Nicola Sturgeon arrested over the inquiry into the finances of the SNP. The former Scottish First Minister is the third person to be arrested as part of an ongoing investigation. Also tonight, 3 Britons are missing after a boat caught fire off Egypt's Red Sea coast. The Energy Secretary, Grant Shapps, says he won't miss the drama around Boris Johnson after the former Prime Minister stood down as an MP. And Manchester City arrive home as champions of Europe, completing an historic treble.
This is ITV News with Gamal Fahnbulleh.
Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested by police earlier today as part of an investigation into the finances of the Scottish National Party. In the last half hour, she's been released without charge, pending further investigation. Let's bring in STV's political editor, Colin McKay. And Colin, what has the response to the latest developments been?
Well, this is huge in Scottish political terms. It's pretty big in UK political terms. Nicola Sturgeon's by far the best-known Scottish politician, but she's a pretty big figure in UK politics as well. And as you say, just literally in the last half hour or so, she has been released without charge after being questioned for several hours by Police Scotland detectives today. Now, the Conservatives will be cock-a-hoop that this has happened because it takes some of the spotlight away from their own troubles, their own pressures over Boris Johnson. And today, they are calling on the new SNP leader, Humza Yousaf, First Minister of Scotland, who took over from Nicola Sturgeon, to suspend her from the SNP. He's resisted doing that so far. I think he'll continue to resist doing that. The Lib Dems say that this is going to have huge ramifications for Scottish politics. They're absolutely right on that, because Nicola Sturgeon's resignation as leader was always going to level the playing field in Scottish politics, but now it puts Labour and the SNP neck and neck in some key marginal constituencies right across central Scotland.
OK, Colin McKay in Glasgow, while Louise Scotter has the very latest.
Nicola Sturgeon was at the top of Scottish politics for almost a decade, consistently riding high in the polls before her shock resignation 4 months ago. Questions were asked around the timing of the announcement.
I know it might seem sudden, but I have been wrestling with it, albeit with oscillating levels of intensity for some weeks. Please know.
Today, Police Scotland arrested Nicola Sturgeon after she voluntarily attended an interview regarding the ongoing investigation into the SNP's finances. This is the third SNP arrest in as many months. Her husband, Peter Murrell, the former chief executive of the party, was arrested 2 months ago and released pending further inquiry. Weeks later, the SNP treasurer, Colin Beattie, was arrested and also released. Now Nicola Sturgeon is being questioned by detectives. Her home in Glasgow was searched extensively following her husband's arrest. The investigation relates to more than £600,000 fundraised for an independence campaign. But by 2019, SNP accounts showed the party had just under £97,000. 2 years later, Peter Murrell loaned the party more than £100,000. A month later, police launched their inquiry. Opposition parties want the current First Minister, Humza Yousaf, to take action. Louise Scott, ITV News.
And you can follow all the latest developments on this story on our website, itv.com/news, and on our streaming service, ITVX. Just scroll down to the news section. Now, the Energy Secretary and long-term ally of Boris Johnson, Grant Shapps, has told ITV News he won't miss the drama around the former Prime Minister. Mr Johnson dramatically resigned as an MP on Friday, claiming he'd been forced out by a kangaroo court of MPs investigating Partygate. Our political correspondent, David Wood, joins me now. And David, this is a headache for Rishi Sunak. He now faces 3 by-elections.
And I think you put it rather mildly to call it a headache, Gamal, because what we're seeing is relationships between Boris Johnson and his allies and Rishi Sunak and his allies at an all-time low. We can see that in the fact that a cabinet minister was sent on the airways today to effectively say that whole country has moved on from Boris Johnson, but I think consigning Boris Johnson to the political history books is not going to be easy, but still that is what the government is trying to do today. In Mid-Bedfordshire, one of the seats where a by-election will happen, the party's chairman was out campaigning today, knocking on doors and trying to drum up support there. That by-election triggered by Nadine Dorries standing down. At the time he was doing that, Jacob Rees-Mogg, another Boris Johnson ally, was saying there'll be civil war in the Conservative Party if the party ever does anything to stop Boris Johnson standing again. Of course, Boris Johnson has threatened he may come back into politics. But when I spoke to Grant Shapps a little earlier, he didn't think Boris Johnson would be making a return.
I don't think Boris Johnson himself intends to stand at a by-election, otherwise why would he have just resigned from Parliament? And then secondly, it's a matter for the party as and when that situation arose. Again, you know, you ask me about not just Boris, but any candidate for the party has to go through the same processes.
Now, as Grant Shapps would say, there's more Boris Johnson drama coming down the line this week. It's going to be a very difficult week for the Conservative Party. That committee that was investigating whether Boris Johnson lied to the House of Commons over Partygate, something he's always denied, well, that is meeting tomorrow. It could release its report, which is going to be very critical of the former Prime Minister, as early as Tuesday. Then the headaches keep coming for Rishi Sunak. I'm told those 3 by-elections you mentioned, well, they could be triggered as early as this week, meaning they'd take place in the middle towards the end of July. If Rishi Sunak can't hold on to those seats, well, that's going to really damage his brand, and there are many Conservative MPs who want him to succeed but are very worried he may not be able to. But also, I think what's difficult for Rishi Sunak is that Boris Johnson's allies, they're getting louder. Boris Johnson may not be on the backbenches, but he still has many allies on the Conservative backbenches, and they are only feeling more emboldened, if you like, to criticise Rishi Sunak. The government certainly today determined to show it's moving on and putting a brave face, but I think behind the scenes there's plenty of fear and plenty of frustration.
Yes, certainly quite the headache. OK, David, thank you. Well, in other news today, and 3 British tourists are missing after a luxury boat caught fire on Egypt's Red Sea coast. 24 other people were rescued, many of them Britons, from the boat, which was on a 7-day diving cruise. Neil Connery has the latest.
This was the Hurricane dive boat not long after it burst into flames in the Red Sea near Marsa Alam early this morning. Explosions could be seen as the fire spread. 15 British passengers had been on board, along with 10 crew members and 2 guides. Minutes earlier, as smoke billowed, one person was seen clinging from beneath a window as he managed to get onto one of the rescue boats. An electrical fault in the engine room is suspected of being the cause. The fire started while the crew were giving a dive briefing. 3 British tourists are missing. All other passengers and crew were rescued and are reported to be well. Scuba Travel, which chartered the boat, said the group were on a 7-day tour. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the British nationals involved and is in contact with local authorities as investigations get underway. Neil Connery, ITV News.
8 teenagers have been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of a 16-year-old boy in Bath. Emergency services were called to a property last night after reports of a stabbing. A 35-year-old woman was also injured in the incident. The teenagers all currently remain in police custody. Now, following intense heat this weekend, torrential rain is now in store for parts of the UK. In fact, some areas could expect an entire month's worth in just 12 hours. It comes after some of the hottest temperatures were recorded so far this year. Charlie Frost is in West Sussex and sent this report.
Water-bombing wildfires from above. Fire crews in Scotland battling blazes in the Highlands as fires rip through forests for a second day. In contrast, in Sussex, the sunshine drew thousands to the south of England show, but the soaring temperatures left many searching for shade.
How are you coping in the heat? There's a nice gentle breeze, so it's making it bearable, but it's much hotter than we would have liked.
We've got plenty of water we brought with us, and the ice creams help, so it's been lovely.
Just finding shade every now and again, keeping hydrated, about to get an ice cream, and yeah, just having little breaks from the sunshine, really.
It's really, really hot. We came a few years ago and the weather was completely different. It rained the whole time. So yeah, this year we decided to bring the children, and it's just been so hot.
But at an agricultural show, it's not just the spectators that feel the heat.
All our exhibitors and our stewards are professionals. If we had any concerns with regards to animal welfare, then we would obviously take the necessary precautions.
And many of us are being advised to take precautions when it comes to our own well-being. An amber heat alert in place in the Midlands, south and east of England until Tuesday morning.
Temperatures this weekend have reached 10 degrees Celsius higher in some places than normal June weather, leaving us all looking for ways to keep cool.
Elsewhere, though, there were storms, the pressure from the heat creating scenes like this in Cornwall. And this isn't the end of this more extreme weather, with a heat wave for much of the UK forecast next week. Charlie Frost, ITV News in Ardingly in Sussex.
4 children who survived alone in the Amazon for 40 days lived off fruit and cassava flour, according to their uncle. The eldest, aged 13, the youngest just 11 months, were rescued by the army and are now being treated for dehydration and insect bites. The country's president met the children in hospital in Bogota last night. Gustavo Petro said the incredible story would be an example of survival and their bravery will remain in history. Their disappearance sparked a major rescue operation after the plane they were travelling in crashed on the 1st of May. On to sport now. Novak Djokovic has made tennis history in Paris. The 36-year-old Serb won the French Open final against Casper Ruud in straight sets. It was the 23rd Grand Slam title of his career, making him the most successful player of all time, overtaking the record of 22 titles he previously shared with Rafa Nadal. And finally tonight, the celebrations continued into the night after Manchester City were crowned champions of Europe. Last night's 1-0 win over Inter Milan in Istanbul saw Pep Guardiola's team make history, capping an unforgettable season. City have completed the coveted treble, only the second English club to do so since their arch-rivals Manchester United back in 1999. Carrie Davis is at the Etihad.
They are the newly crowned Kings of Europe, returning with club football's crown jewels. Hand luggage that had no chance of being put in the hold. Well before the team had taken off in Istanbul, fans back home wasted no time in heading to the club shop, where finally champions of Europe could be emblazoned on their backs. Now surely every Man City supporter's favourite shirt.
It's something I thought I'd never see, to be honest. And you know, every game I went to when I was their age, was the last game was to stay up, and now the champions of Europe.
They've done amazing, and Pep's just God.
You watched at home last night. What were the celebrations like in the living room?
We were like all over the shop.
What time did you eventually get to bed?
12.
Oh, tired one today then?
Yeah.
All worth it though?
Yeah.
While fans danced around their living rooms, 1,600 miles away, players celebrated their match-winning midfielder. Rodri's 68th minute strike will be replayed for decades to come.
Coming onto it now to shoot! Score!
There was ecstasy, but also relief for manager Pep Guardiola. This was not just a dream, but an expectation of the club's Abu Dhabi owner. Some will view this triumph as tainted by charges of financial breaches brought against the club by the Premier League. Allegations Man City fiercely deny. All that far from the minds of the players as they belted out an Oasis classic. And on the other side of the world, the Mancunian who wrote it, Noel Gallagher, was partying with fans in San Diego. The party is far from over. Open-top buses have been spotted en route to Manchester, and the players who'll ride them through the city centre tomorrow have touched down too. But coming back down to earth may take a little longer. Carrie Davis, ITV News, Manchester.
And that is it from us. We are back at 10 o'clock. In the meantime, I do hope you enjoy what is left of your evening. Bye-bye for now. Bye.
Everywhere will be lovely and warm today. You might even be tempted to go for a dip. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello, a very good evening to you. The next 24 hours, the UK will see quite a few heavy, thundery downpours, putting down a lot of rain for some areas through tonight and first thing tomorrow, interspersed with hot sunshine during the day tomorrow. And from Tuesday, a drier pattern emerges once more across the country. In the meantime, tonight, we're keeping our eye on some very heavy, thundery downpours, moving up from the south coast into the west country, parts of South and Mid Wales through the course of the night. A smattering of showers further north, but for many places, a dry night to come and pretty uncomfortable for sleeping. The capital not falling below 18 degrees tonight. On to tomorrow, very wet start to the day, as you can see across parts of Wales. Those thundery downpours moving their way westwards into Northern Ireland during the afternoon. A fine start for many of us tomorrow with hot sunshine, slightly cloudier in the southwest, but expect plenty of thundery showers to develop across many parts of England, Wales and perhaps Scotland during the afternoon. And it's another hot one. Bye-bye.
Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.